After 7 years, I have decided to share the tragedy that occurred to my daughter in the hands of a surgeon at the Children's Hospital, Colorado. On August 13, 2011, at the age of 2, my daughter Brianna was diagnosed with stage 3 liver cancer. She had a tumor the size of a baseball. These were the most devastating news I had ever received in my life at the moment, not knowing that the worst was yet to come. The following 3 months were extremely difficult to me as a parent, but I could only imagine what my princess was going through. Right away, the chemotherapies began. Her hair began to fall, leaving chunks all over her pillow. Imagine having to shave your daughter's head because her hair keeps falling out. This was heartbreaking. Even after all the struggles, we were headed the right direction. The chemos had managed to shrink this baseball tumor to the size of a golf ball, and that was amazing progress. But when it rains, it pours. On November 2011, I received a call we would no longer continue with chemos. They had discovered her cancer had shrunk near a delicate vein, which was the portal vein. If the tumor would have shrunk on any other part of her liver, they could have resected this tumor as it got smaller. With the tumor shrinking near this vein, at this point, we had no other options. I felt so sad. The only option was to list her for a transplant. My heart would race every time my phone would ring, with the thought of this would be the call today. December 13, 2011 at 9:45 a.m. The day had arrived. There was a donor match, and now she was scheduled for surgery at 4 p.m. the following day. As we entered Children's Hospital, Colorado, with mixed emotions, she ran to the ball machine display. She looked so cute in her little footsie pajama and her pink beanie, which covered her bald little head. She looked so healthy that no one would have thought she had cancer if they saw her. Her beautiful rosy cheeks and a smile that would make anyone's day better. The way she sang her ABCs with a tone of voice like the Cookie Monster from Sesame Street. She was full of life. As we headed upstairs, I could not help to think I was putting my daughter's life in the trusted hands of an experienced surgeon, whom I trusted with so many years of experience to operate on my daughter. As we walked inside the operating room, my heart ached. As I laid my daughter down on a cold operating table, I kissed my daughter and gave her my blessings, and walked out with many tears, wishing I was the one laying on that table. Every hour on the hour, I received a call for an update. At 3 a.m., I no longer received a call. As I began to worry and feel anxious, the surgeon walked into the small waiting room. As he sat down to approach us, I could tell in his face and his eyes something was not right. All I heard was, "I'm sorry. I don't know if Brianna's going to make it." There are absolutely no words to explain how I felt in that moment. As he began to tell me what had occurred, he explained to me that he had ruptured her portal vein. He had cut it too short, and when he stretched to sew it, it ruptured. He said he thought he could make it, but did not. As I immediately question what was going to happen with my daughter, he tells me he doesn't know. Crying, I asked again, what's going to happen with Brianna? Is she going to die? And I don't know. Frustrated, he left the room. Brianna's little body had immediately began to lose 3 to 4 liters of blood. The time passed so slow. I felt so vulnerable. I did not get to see my daughter until 12:20 noon. As I entered the intensive care unit, I ran to her bed, wanting to hug her. Yet I could not help to notice all the machines her little body was connected to. Sorry. Swollen body, a breathing tube down her throat. IVs and more. As I removed the top covers to see her abdomen, I found a terrific, horrifying view of her little belly left open and sponges inside, and a large clear dressing to keep everything in place. 3 days later, Bree went back to the operating room to finalize and close her abdomen and check if the bile duct was functioning, as well as any additional bleeding. As I sit in the intensive care unit, waiting for her to come back, I could not wait for this nightmare to be over, so that she would wake up and talk and play and just be her normal self. 4 days later, they began to wean her off the sedation early in the morning. By 3:45 p.m., she was not responding. She would not wake up, no matter how much I would talk to her. I received a call almost at 1 a.m. The surgeon says things were not looking good, and Brianna would need to go back to that transplant list for a second transplant. Her hormonal levels were high, her blood pressure as well, and all the lab would come back with the numbers heading the wrong direction. 2 days after the sedation removal and no signs of progress, she went in for a CT scan. Their neglect and surprise was an excessive brain swelling. She would now need an ICP, a shunt that would drain the excessive fluid from her brain. No one told me what to expect or what the consequences would be after. November 21st, 2011, 7 days after the first transplant, Brianna had to undergo surgery for the second transplant. This was her third surgery in 1 week. With no other surgeon available to operate, I again had to trust my daughter's life in his hands one more time. I found myself anxious in the waiting room, waiting for all of this to be over, and at 10:45 a.m., I received a call. Surgery was complete. As I head over to the ICU to see my princess, it was awful. This was more frightening than the first time around. Her body had more swelling. Her tongue was swelling and sticking out. Her eyelids were puffy and red. Seeing your child this way is the worst image any loving parent can have. next day, neurology came to assess her, as they noticed she had eye deviation and large pupils. Their initial thought was Brianna had a brain bleed. As it immediately showed concern, they conducted a CT scan, which showed negative bleed. Later that evening, the doctors called for a meeting, which many specialists as well as myself attended. This meeting was to prepare me for the worst. While I sat confused with no answers, instead of trying to find the source of her eye deviation and enlarged pupils, I could tell they had given up. But Brianna hadn't. One day later, she woke up. 4 days later, after finding enlarged pupils and performing a CT scan, knowing there were abnormalities, they finally took my daughter for an MRI at 11:30 a.m., where they discovered why her eyes were enlarged, which they neglected to continue and find the cause days prior. The MRI showed results, which were brain damage. Brianna's brain had severe damage that would affect her speech, her sight, and mobility. Now my daughter's life has changed. It has changed forever. There could have been a preventable medical error during the initial first transplant surgery. January 1st, 2012. Bree's eyes are open. She remains on her breathing tube with no signs of comprehension or physical activity whatsoever. Today, they would be removing her breathing tube to see if she was able to breathe on her own. What a terrifying feeling knowing that your daughter could possibly start gasping for air and not breathe on her own. But thankfully, Brianna is strong and she started breathing on her own. After so many bad days, today was a good day. Sorry. Brianna then started to show signs of possible seizures. Stiffness in her body, her eyes rolling to her side. After an immediate scan, no seizure activity was found. 1 month later, my princess was finally stable enough to leave the ICU and go upstairs to a room. But she was not the same little girl who ran up to the ball machine the day we came in. Sorry. Our lives were changed forever. Brianna had PTOT and speech. As the days went by, the time and days for therapy decreased and cut short. They gave up on her since there was no immediate progress to their eyes. From the time that we had gone upstairs, there had been many situations and small procedures done, a G-tube placement and a biopsy. The day had finally arrived, March 6, 2012. The day we got to go home. This day was full of emotions as I dressed Brianna with the beautiful jean skirt, a white cardigan, and this time there was no pink beanie. There was a pink bow. I had become a mom of a special needs, precious little girl whose life was destroyed and changed forever. How could I care for her at home? I felt clueless. This was not fair. I had felt robbed and stolen and left with emptiness inside. As we walked downstairs, there was the ball machine. We decided to park the temporary kit car stroller and snap a picture, and she definitely was not smiling. She was not the smiling, happy little girl who was talking and laughing. She was now full of agitation, biting on a plastic chewy tube, not walking, diaper dependent, nonverbal, and with many prescriptions on hand that she would take. How ignorant was I to think that every child in a wheelchair meant they were born with a disability. Life after arriving home was full of crying day and night. I believe she was agitated and had a lot of medication withdrawals. Pain she could not express herself, and I could only imagine how frustrated she must have felt. Every day was a routine. Every week we had doctor's appointments, including labs. She was constantly sick, and there was even times she became very weak. At one point, she became altered. We were constantly admitted, inpatient, and many times was outpatient. Sick and tired of going to the hospital that tragically changed our life, I constantly felt angry. It was getting hard, very hard to step foot inside. I moved to Arizona November 1st in search of peace and to start a different life. By November 8th, I noticed Bree had abdominal distension. I took her to Phoenix Children's Hospital. After a scan, they noticed her portal vein was narrowed. That caused her abdominal distension and black stool. After all that Brianna had gone through, Arizona decided it would be the best to transport her and fly her back to Colorado. We arrived to Colorado as they ballooned her narrow vein and placed a stent. Days later, we came back. Life today for us. Seizures, many seizures, as many as up to 30 a day. More when she's sick and when she begins to have clusters. There has been times I've had to call the ambulance. Her rescue medications at times does not work. Depending on the day, she might have startle seizures, clusters, or even drop. She's not to be left alone at any second, and she might fall and hurt herself. When she's sleeping, a seizure will disturb her sleep. If I am next to her and I cough, she will startle and go into an immediate seizure. She naps twice a day for 10 minutes. Brianna is not aware of her surroundings or danger. She also wears diapers. I change her G-tube every 3 months. We have many appointments to many specialists. Every month I must call for medication refills before she runs out. They are all scheduled for refills on different days of the month. Brianna also depends on a stroller when we leave the house. At home, she has a feeding chair that has a tray and a belt so she won't slide out. Brianna needs full care, which I care for her all the time. She is also getting older and heavier, which comes with a lot of challenges. A big challenge we face is changing her diaper in public, not having any room or a changing table. She has gotten taller, so changing her in the back seat of my car is no longer an option. Her left arm was also injured, so she has no function of that left arm whatsoever. Brianna does not attend school. When I tried to enroll her, she was constantly sick. She is very immune suppressed. She gets recurring pneumonias as soon as she comes down with a cold. When she is sick, it lasts about 1 month before she even starts to get better. She does some walking. She eats by mouth, still with my assistance, and she drinks from a sippy cup. She has a G-tube for medication still in place. Being a single mom and working nights has been very hard and frustrating. I was full-time for the past 3 years, and now I'm PRN, losing income and benefits, including my FMLA, which risks my job. Coming home tired from a 10-hour to 12-hour shift, anywhere from 4:30 a.m. to 6:30 a.m. Coming home to care for Brianna and not sleep has really taken a toll in my life. When Brianna was diagnosed with cancer, her little brother Vincent was only 2 weeks born. Vincent, he did not have a chance to meet who his sister was prior to this medical error. As he's growing up, every birthday, his wish is that his sister could talk. He is a loving and caring brother to Brianna. Last, I know many of you are wondering, why did I wait 7 years to talk about this tragedy? My main focus and priority was for my daughter to come home with us. So many unexpected events to announce something so personal and hurtful, just could not speak. Anytime anyone would ask what happened, tears would just roll down my face. I had no words to put together what we had gone through. In the beginning, I was very overwhelmed with the life changes that drastically occurred having a newborn and having a daughter who required special help. Even though I tried to seek legal justice right at one point, I would get turned down due to the existing laws in Colorado pertaining any medical malpractice. Now the time has come to seek justice. To seek justice for Brianna to help her with a better quality of life, including any rehabs or any special therapies like hyperbaric or stem cells, etc. And all the additional special needs, items or equipment, accommodations that she may need as she is growing. Please help me share this video to achieve justice for Brianna. And I just want to thank you all for watching.